Hi, I'm Lisa Singer. I am the Senior Director, Event Programming at Media Post, and this is Brand Insider BTS, where I get to pull back the curtain on some of the most influential women marketers today. And today with me is Christina Coy. She is the VP of Marketing at Bonchon. Hey, Christina, how are you?
Hi, Lisa. Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I'm so happy to do this. And Bonchon, I wasn't that familiar with you guys, and you're all over, and it sounds delicious. It's like Korean chicken. I mean, I don't usually like to talk about the brands, but just a little bit. Like, tell me about
Yeah,
what you guys do, what you are.
for sure. We're Korean fried chicken. So, if you didn't know, back in the Korean War, Americans took fried chicken to Korea. Koreans put a twist on it, started double frying it, and then our founder created a specialty sauce that he worked on for years that is just amazing and very craveable. So, Korean fried chicken is our jam, and that's our bread and butter, and we love it. It's amazing, has extra crunch, so very delicious.
Yes, well, it definitely, all the pictures look good. Now I'll have to be on the lookout for it. Obviously you were ranked number two best chicken wings. So I mean that was what, by Tasting Table. So that's pretty amazing. So obviously you know as you speak, you're not just exaggerating. It's there's the proof you're award winning. Talk about that. I mean, okay, so the name Bonchon. So this is where I like to get away from the brand and more into you. Now, Bonchon means hometown or my roots. So I want you to tell us about your roots and not necessarily what town you grew up in, although you can mention that, but just how you grew up to become who you are today.
Sure. So, I did grow up in Dallas, by the way, but my parents were educators, and growing up, very hard workers. They both worked full time and very passionate about what they did. And so I think part of that rubbed off on me. I started to see, how passionate they were about their careers and their professions, and I think I wanted to be like that. So slowly started learning that, hard work and passion for what you do can really make you successful, and you'll enjoy what you do at the end of the day. So I think that's where I'm at today is, this passion for what I do, which, let's be honest, restaurant marketing, food all the time. I mean, who doesn't
Mhm.
love that? So it's been a nice ride.
Yeah, well, I'm curious when you talk about the passion. I mean, let's get into sort of when you were first starting out with your career. I mean, I know you started on the agency side.
Mhm.
I thought it was interesting. You did a stint at the Dallas Symphony Orchestra, which may be the marketing side, so maybe it still stays in that side of things. And then you went to the QSR fast food. But when you say passion, when you were graduating, when you were in school, was that your passion marketing? Is that what you set out for? Or talk about how that evolved?
Sure. It's interesting. I actually wanted a degree in psychology. And then as a freshman, my mom said, let's reevaluate. And so she thought the business degree would be a broader spectrum for career opportunities. And she was not wrong. Um,
And
so
put in quotes, make more money.
yeah. Yeah. So I took business classes. I still took a psychology class, and marketing classes as well. And still love psychology to this day, and loved it in college. But I found that I could still kind of do both,
Mhm.
marketing with psychology intertwined, because marketing is about reading your customers, understanding what they're going to do or why they're doing what they're doing. And so it ended up being a perfect mesh, going from, I was actually at the Dallas Symphony as an internship, in college is where it started. And it was more event planning. So that uses psychology as well. Like, where are they going to go from point A, point B, point C throughout the experience of the event? And then at the agencies, working on different brands, I ended up being on restaurant brands, and it just kind of fell in my lap, and I ended up loving it. Um, and with that, we still had to use kind of the thought of psychology and why are people doing these things. And so I got involved with test markets and R&D with new products. And now that every restaurant concept I've been with, we're still doing a lot of an analyzing of the guest experience, and where do we want them to do? What do we want them to do? Where do we want them to go within the restaurant? So it's been great, and I love trying new foods. Love that we get to kind of use psychology and marketing
Mhm.
together. So it was a perfect blend.
Well, and food obviously has plays a big role in psychology, or the psyche of a person, in the sense
Mhm.
that, even just the way we eat sometimes, I mean, we eat for comfort, or what we crave and those kind of things. So all of that must come into play when you're trying to figure out, as you said, sort of testing different markets, what brands not what brands, but what foods you're creating. You must have to kind of dive into the consumer's mind, or and see, okay, this is why this is working, and try to figure that out.
Exactly. It's not a perfect science, but there's still a science to it. And that's what I love, is that marketing is this unknown. There's a lot of things that we still can't measure, which has always been infuriating. But the good news is with the science behind some of it, especially with digital advertising now we can analyze
Mhm.
numbers. We can look at what people are doing as far as PMix and sales and day parts. So it's been a nice blend overall.
Yeah, no, I can see how that would definitely fall into place with that psychology degree that your mom sort of directed you away from, but you still incorporated it.
Thanks,
Um,
mom.
yes. Now I can feed my self, and my have a house and all of these things.
Yeah.
Not that any so someone who has a psychology degree makes money. I don't mean it that way. I meant it more
Right.
in the sense of a liberal arts kind of thing. Which, again, not that I don't want everyone telling me, writing in that I make money and I have these degrees, but I do feel like when you say business degree, for any parent, that is something that maybe sort of resonates better, in terms of, okay, we can make some money. There's a lot of options
I
there.
think the options, it's just a matter of more options.
Yes, definitely. So before I keep continuing stepping in that, I will move on to the next. But no, I actually do want to talk about, because well, women in QSR industry. Now, first, I did notice, I do my snooping, as I always say, and I saw that you had posted a picture of you and your women colleagues, and talking. It was for International Women's Day,
Mhm.
and you were celebrating it because I believe it was like 54% of the women executives at
Correct.
Bonchon I mean, the executives at Bonchon are women.
Mhm.
And also, I believe even a large, maybe a little less than that, are, split women to men and within the industry, or within Bonchon. But that is not necessarily the norm, or at least it hasn't been historically. QSR and restaurants have been very male dominated. And I'm just curious, you've been in the industry for a long time now. Have you ever faced any of that within your career? Anything that you've had to overcome as a woman, and maybe how you were either perceived or treated?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I still think it's majority male dominated world for the most part. Definitely more women in the advertising and marketing world and industry, but specifically in the restaurant industry, it is more male driven. And so, over time, definitely faced with challenges where either didn't look old enough, or didn't maybe speak up enough to where they thought that I, could be an executive or was an executive or whatever. But then at the same time, I think that people are afraid of change. There's always a fear of change. And so in this industry, like many others, I think there's also a fear to hire women for some of these executive roles because they just haven't seen it. So then they don't look for it because it's oh no, what if? We don't know. We haven't had this. And so it could also be a mix of women not applying for some of those roles because of either the fear of the unknown or the fear of not having enough experience to even want to apply. So I think it's a mix of all those things for the industry. But yes, I've had my own challenges.
Or is
Um,
there one that maybe jumps out at you that you could share?
yeah, early on, there were instances where, let's say, when I was on an executive team, the men would all go and do happy hour or go have side meetings, and I wouldn't be included in those, even though my title would have meant that I should have been in that group.
Mhm.
Just wasn't part of it. And so I had to bring that up and, hey, I noticed that you guys did this. And, is there a reason that I wasn't included? It feels like there should have been something discussed. And, so there was conversations that had to be had about that. Other instances where, maybe at events after work where men might have thought that they could approach a situation that they shouldn't have. where they felt they were the dominant personality of the group. And so, stuff had to go to HR. But I
Right.
mean, at the end of the day, I think a lot of women are faced with this and they don't bring it up, and it's scary and it's a challenge, and we all have to face some of these things, and hopefully head on. But I'm sure there's been a lot of instances like that and many others that women still have to face today.
Well, and I totally agree. I think we're hearing about more of it now, it seems, or hopefully we are. But the fact, I mean, even just the fact of when they're not inviting you, like when that you approach them and called them on it. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know that because I might be like, oh, they just don't like me, or oh, they just, I don't know. Like, it's just, it
Right.
takes a lot of confidence, guts, however you want to put it. And where did that come from?
I will say, in the instances where I've had to bring it up, it was a supervisor that I felt comfortable talking to. So they had already made me comfortable with them in those types of conversations, or any type, to where they left the door open for me to talk to them openly. And
Mhm.
so I think that's kind of where that came from. I definitely could see people in my past that maybe I wouldn't have been able to approach, just for the fear of the unknown, or are they going to not respect me as much because I'm whining or I'm
Right.
complaining, whatever. So I feel like, at that point in time, I felt comfortable going up to them.
So a younger woman now starting out, one, I want to ask what you would suggest for them or recommend to advise them in terms of getting into a career in your industry. But before that, how would they approach it? So someone who is not someone that's made it apparent that you can be comfortable talking about anything with them, going to them with issues like that, but someone who's maybe kept their distance a little bit. Um, because I mean, she shouldn't just sit and take it. So what do you think is the better way to kind of approach something like that?
I think don't be afraid to go to the right people and tell them, your concerns. In most instances, it's HR. But then other times, I would hope that you would have somebody that you're reporting to that you can talk to and have those conversations. It's also great to have a mentor. I had multiple mentors over time, some women, some men, and I think it was a eye-opening experience to get feedback from both of them, to kind of understand a male's perspective and a female's perspective in some of those situations. So definitely had some strong women mentors that, told me, don't be afraid to speak up, speak up. There was one instance where I went up to my supervisor. She was leaving, and I said, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I'm so glad that you were here. You really inspired me, and you gave me you, right? I gave her all this credit, and she stopped me and she said, don't you ever thank somebody else for the work that you did. She goes, you earned this. You got here on your own. I just gave you what you deserved. And I stopped in my tracks. I was just floored, because I didn't think of it that way. I really was just, somebody else gave me this. I didn't necessarily do anything, but I was discrediting my own work. And so I think, having that understanding from somebody was great. It was eye-opening.
Yeah, no, and good for her. Good for, I mean,
I
that's the
know.
kind of boss you need to, not just take the kudos and just to know that it is. Because I think women do tend to be a little bit more, oh, you say you look nice. Oh, this whole thing, or you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like whatever it is, they tend to
Downplay.
downplay the compliments or the, giving themselves the credit for certain things. And so
Right.
I do think that that's a real valuable lesson that your boss taught you. So I'm sure that's something you'll carry on, or you are carrying on with the people who are working under you.
Oh, for sure. I love training my team members, educating them, sharing more data with them so they understand what they're doing and they can make their own decisions. Most recently, a few years back, we had a team member that came up to me and said, I want a raise and I want a promotion. And I was floored, because quite honestly, nobody had done that yet.
Mhm.
And for a woman to do it, I was quite impressed, number
Mhm.
one.
Yeah.
Number two, I didn't even know what to do because I wasn't expecting it, but it was actually refreshing to have that kind of conversation and talk through, what does it take to get there? does she need to move up? Is this the right time?
Yep.
So it was actually impressive. And I was, wish that I had done that at an earlier age as well. So I'm hopeful that the younger generation today is doing that and feeling a little bit more empowered, because if you don't ask for it, they won't give it to you. It doesn't just land in your lap.
Yeah, I've definitely learned that one. Today. So
Haven't we all?
it's true, and and again, I think women, and I'm not at all bashing men, to be honest. I've had so many men in my career who have been so valuable and supportive to me. So it's not about, I never mean to do that, but I do think there are certain characteristics that women have that that sort of can, really negatively impact how we pursue our career or how we advance or any of those things, unless we kind of get over ourselves a little bit.
Agreed. I completely agreed. I had a boss one time that was new to the company. He was our new CEO. And I was so frustrated because yet again, I was going to have to prove myself to somebody else and, at least to keep my current position. But then moving up was going to take even longer because now we had somebody new that I had to prove myself to. And I just, like balls of fire, right? I just all of a sudden felt the nerve and the energy to go talk to him. And I said, listen, I've been here this number of years and I barely get a pay raise and, whatever. I kept listing all the things. And he said, okay, well, what do you want? And I thought, oh God, I'm not ready. I didn't prepare for this. I didn't have a number in mind. He's like, tell me what you want. And so, I threw out a random number for my salary that I wanted. And he said yes right away. And I thought, darn it, I should have asked for more.
Yeah, I know. If it's too easy, then you kind of think, oh, it could have been something, I could have got like way more than this.
Learning experience, right? Like be ready for those conversations, like have your value in your mind of what you think you want for yourself in the future so that when those conversations do pop up, you're ready.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And so, I mean, you've kind of given those little recommendations that you would advise a young woman starting out or a young person starting out in the QSR restaurant industry. But let's go even more to the young woman who, as you said, we're seeing more women in the industry, but yet less women executives. Although, as you pointed out with marketing, and I do think, because at our events, we'll have a room full of all women, at the QSR event. And it's just, and they're all senior level women. So we've seen that change just in the course of when we first started having these events till today.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same point, you still read the statistics and it's still not quite equal. So that person who just graduated or maybe just changing careers, but was just getting started in the industry, how do you say do it? How do you say navigate your career in the sense that so then they can become you?
Right. I think the best advice I could give anybody, and it's happened to me too, where random students who graduate will reach out and ask for me to mentor them or ask for advice. It's the networking that I think is invaluable, regardless of what industry you're in. The networking is huge because one position may lead to another just because you know somebody. A lot of it is who you know, but then the other part of it is once you have a little bit of experience under your belt, that gives you just enough for all these companies to start opening doors for you. But I think the networking is huge, but I also think not being afraid to ask for what you want. I mean, the more I see it happening, the more people are getting what they ask for, or at least a compromise, which is better than nothing. So don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah, no, and I agree exactly what you said earlier. If you don't ask, they're not going to offer. And that's just
Right.
something. It's scary. Believe me, I have sat there like rehearsing and whatever, just writing it down and okay. And
taking notes.
my
Yeah.
stomach in knots. And so I completely get that. But then I try to remind myself, what's the worst that can happen? I get nothing, which means
Right.
I'm still where I am. It's not like they're suddenly going to say you're fired.
Right.
Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And then you decide how you want to continue your career or your position at a particular company. So it's basically, so there's really, it's not a win-win, but it's maybe a no loss.
No lose.
Yeah,
there's
that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. You don't lose.
Yeah, I think people have to remember that. I'm curious, and we've talked a little bit about some of the challenges as a woman in the industry, but has there been a challenge or maybe an impasse that you've come to, and more on the personal side, not, you couldn't figure out this, strategy or whatever, but in your career that you maybe thought, oh my gosh, this, is done, or this is, I don't know what to do from here. And you had to kind of rise above to meet that challenge. And maybe it's even the personal side that influenced your career, or however it may be.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I can think of is the managing up. I think that's been a huge challenge, because I think nobody teaches you how to manage up to a CEO, to especially a CEO. I think is probably the hardest, because depending on when you start doing that, which I think I did at a young age, I was not prepared. And the managing up thing is more about trying to manage expectations from a C-level executive, and what is it they're looking for, and why do they want to know this, and how do I prepare for that, where do I get it, all these questions that nobody really tells you how to do that, there, or unless you are reading books, and great for you, but I was not at the time. So I feel like that was something I wasn't ready for. But also on top of that, there was one time I had a conversation with one of my previous supervisors, and I just said, I don't have anybody anymore. Once you reach a certain point in your career, and I think at that point I was a director, and I said, I don't have anybody that I can, learn from anymore. If I'm already at the head marketer at this company, I don't have anybody to bounce ideas off of, to really be my go-to. And he said, what do you expect? What do you think's gonna happen? This is where you're at. Now you've got to find your answers on your own. You've moved up to where you're that adult that has to figure out these answers. And I thought, oh no, I'm an adult. What happened?
Yeah.
But it was also eye-opening on that aspect as well. So I think a little bit of those two things were both learning experiences that I had to kind of overcome.
Yeah. Well, and even I think though, when you're at, as you said, I think when you first got to that director level and there wasn't anyone to sort of lean into, but we still should be able to lean outward. Like maybe it's not within your company,
Right.
somewhere. Like you almost feel like you're too much high of a level to look for a mentor.
Right.
But yet we still need help. Like I don't care
Right.
what position you are, I mean, unless you're like, owner, CEO, CMO, like I don't know, like unless you're just
Yes.
like there's nowhere else to go. But even then, I've talked with many who they still have other aspirations, and then they still dive into things that they may never have done before. So it's like, how did that? I would feel at that level, that's when it's more risky, or not risky, but it's harder sometimes to ask because you don't
Right.
want to lose the authority that you have earned. I
Right.
don't know, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But I think the great thing about this industry, this is what I absolutely love about this whole industry, restaurant industry, is that there's a lot of collaboration. I have now made a network of women, men, you name it, in different restaurant brands, where as soon as I reach a challenge or an impasse that I don't know, because I haven't done that before in my career, I can reach out to them to say, have you done this? How did you guys do it? It's so great to have this amazing network where people lean into each other for advice and guidance. Even though we're all competing against each other, it's more the support group. And it's been so wonderful, because I've made so many great friends in this industry that I still, can talk to on a personal level, professional level. One friend told me, she said, I have somebody that I work with outside of work where she's a coach. She's a career coach that helps me just manage my day to day and how to handle certain situations. She walks me through the scenarios, and we have role play of how I should answer certain questions. And I come to her with frustrations and challenges that are happening to me on a daily basis. And she kind of coaches me on how to handle those situations so that I'm still coming at them with the professional approach without bringing too much emotion into it, and showing the facts. And I thought that was also another way, to kind of handle this role, or these roles, as you get, move up the ladder.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I do think that, again, it's about getting over ourselves. Like it's okay to ask for help, and it's not going to make you less of, I think that's where sometimes when women, because they so much wanted to make it, and then, and again, it can be men too, but I'm just saying, like you don't want to acknowledge that you don't know.
Right.
You feel like that's going to diminish everything you have earned, and it really shouldn't. You shouldn't feel that way. It's just about getting to a point where this is something, it's new grounds. Let me seek help for that. So I totally agree. And I think a coach is a really good idea as well.
Mhm.
I'm curious, what's one thing that, people get wrong about you?
Other than my age, it's actually my age does have something to do with it, but it's my looks. Crazy, but I look younger than I am. So constantly getting the when people approach me, they act like I don't know what I'm talking about, or they, I'm inexperienced. And so there's a lot of education that has to happen of this is who I am and this is my experience and, blah, 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 blah. But that's something that, I mean, it happens probably once a week where, maybe it's a Zoom call or maybe it's something else. And, they'll even stop like mid sentence. They're like, man, you look young. And thinking, man, is that okay to say?
I
Do you say
know.
that to people like
Yeah.
on Zoom calls, professional Zoom calls? I don't know, but not something I would say to somebody. But I definitely get that where they just think I'm inexperienced. And so, I have to talk a little bit to
Mm,
show that I'm not,
yeah.
too young to know what I'm doing.
Yeah. No, and it's true. I mean, I think, I mean, I'm not asking your age by any means. But I'm just saying, like, looking at your picture on LinkedIn, I'm like, wow, I wonder if it's an old picture, like, and it's just like, it's not, because you look like that, so
Yeah.
it just, and that's the only reason. It's not about, because I'm impressed with your resume and what you've
Yeah.
been doing. And so when if you're thinking you're one age, a certain age, it's just like, well, how did she get to
Yeah.
here?
Well, and
And,
thank God for LinkedIn because, they actually can see your experience with your picture and, no questions asked. But it was funny that you mentioned the LinkedIn picture. We recently took headshots for everybody. And somebody said, one of the things people do on LinkedIn is they keep their old picture from years ago and they never change it. So they still look young.
a lot do, and that is definitely true. It's just,
I'm
and
like,
I think
that's,
some it's more of laziness, like not
yeah,
lazy, but you just don't think of it. I mean, I'm not. I think maybe there are some who want to stay, looking
yeah,
youthful, but I think a lot of it is too. It's kind of one and done. Like you just kind of do it and
forget about it.
be bothered to
Take
whatever.
another one. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so I think there's a combination, but yeah, there's definitely, you come across that a lot at the events, so when I'm
Mhm.
meeting people in person for the first time, and you're trying to find them based on their looks, like their picture, and then either their hair shorter or they look older or whatever it may be. And so
Right.
it happens. I get what you're talking about. Well,
Yeah.
getting back to Bonchon, and your slogan is crunch out loud. So it's
Mhm.
really about your mission to bring the joy to your customers
Mhm.
with comfort food.
Mhm.
So what I want to ask you, what is your crunch out loud? What brings you joy? And it can't be anything from Bonchon.
No, I love trying new restaurants. And I know that sounds very cliche because I'm in the restaurant industry, but it's just so fun. There's all these new restaurant brands and fusion restaurants that are mixing together, French cuisine, American cuisine, Asian cuisine. I mean, you name it. And I love it's almost like art. They'll come up with all these different recipes or spins on whatever, mac and cheese or a new way to do pizza or I mean, I just love it. I think it's so fun. Just last week I went to a new restaurant and I was just taking pictures and texting my friends like, have you been here? It's so great. It's on
Uh-huh.
this corner of this street and this street. You need to come here. Then I like posted on my socials. I'm like, you guys need to come here. It's great. So I love just trying new restaurants. I think, that environment is fun. Just sharing it with other people. It's a communal event,
Mhm.
and it's just a great experience to kind of see what other brands are doing, but also to see what other cultures are doing.
Yep.
So just love it. Just my favorite thing to do.
Oh, that's awesome. And when you mentioned the whole mac and cheese, because there's even in New York, and then probably other places, but there's literally a restaurant that's all about mac and cheese. Because I have a friend who every time he visits New York, he has to go there. Like he loves it. And I was always like, mac and cheese is, like I'm like, it's
Yeah.
whatever. And we just had an event where they brought around these little like fried mac and cheese, Like, so
Yum.
it's, of course, healthy as anything, but I'm like, I don't know. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing. I was just like, come back. I'm like, give me more.
Yeah.
It was just, I was craving it. Like we had another like cocktail.
Yeah.
I'm like, are we having more of those mac and cheese? And they're like, no, not this one. I'm like, ah, it was so good. So you got to try it. Like, I'm not always the most adventurous, like when it comes to trying, or I get something in my head, like, oh, I won't like that. Or what's the big deal?
Right.
And once you try it, like it's
That's
just, you can discover all these things.
And that's the thing. I think a lot of people are afraid to try new things, and that's totally normal. I don't, there's certain things I'll look at it or I'll hear the description. I'm like, oh, I think I'm out on that one. But then the ones that I have tried, I'm like, you know what? It's actually pretty good. I think I'd order this again.
Yep.
So, but usually I need a little push, the waiter either has to recommend it or somebody has to tell me like, you got to try that. Cause I really won't go too far off the beaten path if it's a little out there, but I think that's totally normal. But the mac and cheese thing is legit. There are so many restaurants out there doing it. And then mac and cheese, I know people are having mac and cheese parties and
Really?
where everybody brings their own. I did one, or we participated in one a few years ago, and I didn't win. I was very upset. I have a little bit of a competitive streak in me.
Uh-huh.
And I had bought all these like gourmet cheeses and shaving them off. And I think I spent like $50 on that stupid mac and cheese. And somebody made a brisket mac and cheese, and that one won. And I was like,
Yeah.
of course, the brisket, Texas.
That's funny. Yeah, no, but yeah, no, I'm, like I said, I'm trying to make myself be more adventurous with food, but yeah, I
Yeah.
certain things where I'm just, no, and you have to kind of really twist my arm to do it. So
Yeah, just keep trying.
I agree. It took me 3 tries for sushi.
Oh, really?
I hated sushi the first 2 times. The third time I was like, okay. But then the next day I was driving and craved sushi. Isn't
It
that weird?
it's
Like,
it's a real thing.
yeah,
Yes.
now I love it.
Did you start with the California roll? I think
Of
everybody
course,
starts
of
there.
course, yeah. No, it was California roll, so it wasn't really real sushi. But no, the first 2 times, I literally, not to be, but I put the napkin and like,
Yeah.
was like, don't want it. Like, no, there's a picture, one with my face, and it just was like sheer ugh. And
Yeah.
then, like I said, the third was the first time that I actually finished it. But then I'm like, no, I don't want any more though. Because I would just get like the tempura stuff. And so
Yeah.
but then the next day I was craving sushi, and ever since then I love it.
That's
So
great. I
yeah.
keep telling people your taste buds change every 7 years. Just keep trying things.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah, no, mine was definitely years apart. I had to get over the shock. I had to get over the trauma of it. So, I'm curious if there was one thing you could unlearn, what would that be?
Oh man. I don't think anything. I mean, is there ever a time that you should not learn new things? I just feel like everything you learn for a reason. So I don't think there's anything that I'd want to unlearn, at least not long term. But no, I think it's great to learn new things and keep learning. And hopefully you keep learning as you get older, and that's why you're older and wiser.
That is true. And even if some of the things you learned aren't good, then that helped
Yeah.
define who you are moving forward. So
If it's bad behavior, sure, I want to unlearn it, but I think I'm an angel. So, I mean, we're good there.
that is true. So, yep. Okay. I will go with that. I did notice again, obviously a Korean chicken. So, obviously Asian culture is very important to all of you. And I know that you even to support, the Asian and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, you, had t-shirts made up to talk, to bring awareness and to support. How important is that? I mean, obviously there's a connection with your brand, but in general, how important is it for brands to kind of speak out for those who don't have that, horn to like that platform to, share what's going on? You have this voice that you can share. Most
Right.
brands have a voice that individuals or smaller groups of people can't.
Right.
What do you think the responsibility is?
I think every brand should have some kind of voice about something, whether it's culture or injustice, whatever it may be that they're going to stand behind. They should stand behind something. Not standing behind anything is weak. In this world today, when we all have these positions and these companies that can have a voice, why not use it for the right things? Of course, it's easier, for a brand like Bonchon, where we have a Korean background. And so the Asian culture and the Korean culture is important to us, and supporting that community by all means. I mean, our franchisees are different nationalities of Asian, and it's important to them as well. And so I think taking it down to a human level is what we should all be doing, because that's who our customers are. So I know there's brands out there that may not feel that they have a cultural stance, because maybe they feel like they didn't come from a different cultural background, but everybody does. I mean, you can support one and just pick it and go with it, and that should be, what you stand for. But I think they should have something.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And especially with the rise in like so much anti-hate,
Mhm.
Asian hate, how much it's, grown these past
Yeah,
couple of years. And
it's
it's
been
just horrible.
insane. Yeah, it's blows my mind that that kind of thing happens on a regular basis, and that it still happens to this day. That we all put up with it. Like, this shouldn't be happening to anybody. So whatever we can do, we try to do as much as we can. So this project was very near and dear to my heart, because you know our brand, my friends that are Asian, I would never want anything like that to happen to them. So to raise money, these shirts were awesome. They were made by a Korean American that she just has a broad bandwidth of creativity. And so all we told her was, we just want to show our support for Asian American Pacific Islanders. And she took that and ran with it. And it's a beautiful shirt with a tiger and the Korean colors and the Korean national flower. So I just thought she did an amazing job. She made it look cool. So, I was pleased with how the whole campaign has started and how it's performing to date.
Yeah. Well, no, I like I said, I think that's wonderful that you did that. Bonchon did that, and for all brands, when you see them stepping up, I mean, I think that it definitely needs to be authentic. It can't be just lip service
Mhm.
when people are speaking. But I do think that it's important in every, like, in any little way, whether it be a big brand that has a big platform that they can share something, or even when things are said in front of you. I know that sometimes you can hear something said, and I'll say it's something not, it's cringe. It makes me want to cringe.
Right.
Sometimes it's not always easy to say anything. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
not that you don't necessarily agree, you don't join in on the conversation, but it's hard to even getting up the courage to be that person to say
Right.
that's wrong, or just to speak out against it. I think
Right.
it's important from all levels. So from people who just have themselves as their voice, or what they're sharing on their social media, or a huge brand. I think that every little bit would contribute to helping things being better.
Right. And there's always an opportunity to speak up. And I think at the end of the day, whenever there's a question mark, is there anything wrong with doing good? You shouldn't be judged for doing the right thing to people in
Mhm.
general. So, that's always, I think, the question, that if you can answer that and say, am I doing the right thing for a human being? Am I doing a right thing for a person? Then that answers your question on whether or not you should do it. So,
No, I totally agree. Well, I have one last question. Guilty
okay.
pleasure. What's your guilty pleasure?
Oh my God, Lisa, I have so many. So I mean, I love a good rom-com and pizza and wine, and I will do all three of them at once
Yep.
or one at a time. It doesn't even matter. I love them all. It's just always a nice, if my husband's out doing whatever, I've got my Christina date night with all my favorite things, and I put on my rom-com. I've got my pizza, I've got my wine. I used to work for a pizza brand, and it was magical, because pizza, I just love it.
That's awesome. That's exactly. I will be in on your rom-com date night, or whatever, not date, whatever. I agree. I'm a rom-com girl, and
Yeah.
definitely love my wine. Might
Yes.
even throw in. I love the pizza. Might even throw in a little chocolate, and
Yeah. At the end. Yeah, for
and we're
sure.
good to go.
I have a group of high school friends. We do Love Actually night every
Oh
year right
yeah.
around the holidays. And we've
Uh-huh.
been doing it for about 15 years. And it gets to the point where we don't watch the movie as much anymore. There's a lot of, talking, but, we all have our favorite parts where everybody's like, shh, watch,
Mhm.
but We order pizza and we drink wine, and it's just a great night, you know, with friends and a nice rom-com, and we're all happy.
That sounds awesome. So invite me to the next one.
Yes.
So, Christina, thank you so much. This was really a pleasure talking with you and getting to know you.
Thank you, Lisa. It was a pleasure to meet you too. Appreciate it.
Thanks. And thank you for watching. And as I always say, if you have someone you want me to pull back the curtain on, a women marketer, a brand marketer who you really impresses you, you want to hear more about, please let me know and I will do my best to get them. Thanks again. And Christina, thank you.
Thank you.